Hong Kong, also known as the Pearl of Orient, were thought to be one of the world's most open, dynamic, and thriving economies. This impression was changed when the violent protests broke out in Hong Kong in 2019. The founding cause of the protest was the proposed legislation of the extradition bill, but some observers have pointed out that the protests have some long-term causes, root deeply in the social, economic, and political structures of Hong Kong's society. Hong Kong was ranked the world's most unaffordable housing market for a 10th straight year in 2019. On average, it makes about 21 years for a household's entire income to purchase a home. In another survey interviewing Hong Kong youths, results show that youths expect to work 21 to 25 years before they can buy their first homes. An expert on Hong Kong issues say that the basic issue facing Hong Kong is a lack of upward mobility. Its class rigidity is manifested in unaffordable housing. Hong Kong's high housing prices cause serious social issues. Yet another social issue that concerns many people was the problem of immigration. Since Hong Kong was returned to China in the last 23 years, nearly 1.5 million mainland Chinese immigrants have moved to Hong Kong. Currently, mainland Chinese immigrants make up about 20% of Hong Kong's population. Some Hong Kong experts argue that the ongoing protests are long-rooted with the city's immigration policy. The problem of immigration and high housing prices are long-term causes of the protests. These two problems themselves also could be correlated. Previous studies have shown that the relation between immigration and housing prices are correlated and causal. Assembling a comprehensive database of 474 estimates of immigration's impact on housing prices in 14 destination countries, a meta-analysis found that immigration increases housing prices on average. A study on housing prices in Italy also found that on the state/province level, the increase in the concentration of immigrants have a positive effect on the average housing prices. Another study examining the impact of the increase in mainland Chinese migrants on Hong Kong's housing market found that mainland Chinese immigrants constituted 3.67% of the total home buyers, and these home buyers pay 4.42% higher in prices on average. Given that the supply of housing in Hong Kong remains pretty constant, the law of demand speculates high demand increases price. So here are my research questions. Does immigrant affect the housing prices? And by how much in the case of Hong Kong? To estimate the impact of immigration on housing prices in Hong Kong, in my base estimation, I estimate the following regression models. In equation 1, y is the change of housing price in Hong Kong, x1 is the change of mainland immigrants in Hong Kong, u is the error term. Equation 2 includes extended controls. x1 t minus k represents lags of x1. xk are a set of control variables such as income, year of schooling for adults, number of children, the number of people living in urban areas, and average household sizes, etc. Ideally, I want to use housing transaction records and Hong Kong population census and by census, but I couldn't get the data translated and format for this project. Therefore, I used U.S. census data on home values and nativity in 2020 on the state level to demonstrate the impact of immigration on housing prices using my models. Variables included in this demo are y, median value of owner-occupied housing units, x1, foreign-born, median gross rent, median household income in 1999. Table 1 represents the main impacts estimates of immigration on housing prices using base estimates. It shows that the correlation, median value of owner-occupied housing units, and the number of foreign-born, which I take it as immigrants, is significant. Table 2 shows that after I include additional important variable, median value of owner-occupied housing units and the number of foreign-born remain positively correlated. Although in Model 3, the effect of foreign-born on median value of owner-occupied housing unit is not statistically significant. The coefficient on the number of foreign-born and the R-square changed accordingly as I include additional important variables. Based on 51 observations, That's the 50 states plus DC. Model 4 is my most complete specification. The model also shown that the number of foreign-born has a significant effect on the median value of owner-occupied housing units, and they positively correlate to each other. And 1 unit increase in foreign-born causes a $1 increase in the mean value of median value of owner-occupied housing units. The model also predicts that when x1 and xk equals to 0, the expected mean value of median value of owner-occupied housing unit is negative. Although this large and negative number is not realistic because we don't actually observe negative housing prices. It suggests that a house would have no value if it's built in a place where it has no population, no immigrant, no opportunity to get an income, and the house has no renting value. There are many problems with these models. First, this demo only uses US data on the state level in one time period, but house sales are very time sensitive. We should remove trends and seasonality to get better results. Also, the simple correlations might be robust to certain violations. OVB could be a significant problem when using a simple regression to estimate causality. Factors that could affect housing prices include interest rates, economic growth, supply of housing/land availability, supply of public housing prices in near cities, supply of pre-owned house, rent prices, and also immeasurable buyer behaviors, etc. The database I use cannot capture all these factors. Therefore, it is inappropriate to interpret the relationship as causal. One way to avoid OVB is to use a differences in differences model. On October 26, 2012, the Buyer's Stamp Duty Policy (BSD) was introduced in Hong Kong to stabilize housing price. Under this policy, a flat rate of 15% would apply to non-permanent residence buyers, mostly from the mainland. I will take advantage of the BSD program to conduct a DID model by using BSD as a time dummy and drawing a pool of comparison cities. In this DID model, Y is the housing prices in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the treatment group. The treatment group contains several comparison cities including Macau, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Taipei. BSD is the treatment. D1 is the time dummy. D1 equals 1 for post-BSD and equals to 0 for pre-PSD. D2 is the city dummy. D2 equals to 1 for Hong Kong and equals to 0 for control cities. Data that is required for this study include home sales data of Hong Kong and comparison cities before and after BSD. The unit of observation is an individual property buyer. I would use multi-scale clustering for grouping same houses. However, this sample might affect the proposed project's external validity. DID relies on the assumption of parallel trends between the treatment city and the comparison cities, but the one country, two system policy only applies to Hong Kong but not the comparison cities. This makes Hong Kong very unique. Also, people with different cultural background might have different attitudes toward home buying in a different time. In those cases, the DID coefficient might not truly reflect the effect of BSD. The validity of the DID design rests on the parallel trends assumption. Therefore, we should use pre-treatment data on home sales to check if the comparison cities are a good fit. In addition, we can conduct rounds of surveys and collect data on the home buyers, the buyer's socioeconomic status, such as income, education, etc., and whether he or she is qualified to sales tax exempt, such as diplomatic tax exemption, are important factors that affect the sales price. I've talked about some weaknesses of this DID model and some ways to improve it, but some of you might have noticed that the design of this DID does not answer the research questions directly. My research question is about how immigrants affect housing prices. Basically, the DID model can answer the impacts of the BSD on housing prices, but not immigrants exactly. If you recall, I mentioned earlier that the BSD imposes taxes on non-permanent resident buyers, mostly from the mainland. Immigrants, by definition, are permanent residents. We need further study on the relationship between mainland immigrants and non-permanent resident mainland buyers. But this DID model should provide us some insights in explaining non-local buyers' effects on local housing prices. The expected result. The main purpose of the BSD is to accord priority to Hong Kong permanent resident buyers over non-Hong Kong permanent resident buyers. Under the BSD program, home purchases become more expensive for non-Hong Kong permanent resident buyers. I expect a decrease in the number of home purchased by mainlander in Hong Kong relative to the comparison cities. Keeping other factors constant, as demand goes down, I expect the house prices will go down. The findings of this study can help the government to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of its housing and tax policies. Furthermore, they can provide insights into solving current political and social challenges in Hong Kong. Also, this study could potentially open up a window to look at China's immigration policy in other Chinese autonomous regions such as Tibet and Xinjiang, or even western cities such as Vancouver and Sydney, where the number of mainland Chinese immigrants have been dramatically increased and housing affordability are concerned.